3 years ago, in the midst of the pandemic, director Denis Villeneuve brought audiences to another world, and now they can finally return to the desert planet Arrakis. Dune 2 has finally hit theaters. Let's bring in our Eli Glasner and Jackson Weaver to let us know if it was worth the wait. So, guys, the first film ends on a cliffhanger. Where does the second film pick up?
Well, when we last left the scrappy son of the Duke, Paul, played by Timothée Chalamet, he was on the run, his kingdom ambushed by the horrible House of Harkonnen, and there he is with his mother, wonderful Rebecca Ferguson, as Lady Jessica, and they've been taken in by the Fremen. We saw them at the end of the last film. This is essentially the indigenous people of the planet, those that have learned how to survive in this harsh desert climate, and one of them, Zendaya, plays Chani. There she is. Now, it seems like they're getting along there, but at the beginning, she's a little, let's say, skeptical of our little prince. Take a look.
We've been fighting the Harkonnens for decades.
Look!
My family's been fighting them for centuries.
Your blood comes from dukes and great houses. Here, we're equal.
You could look at this film as almost a kind of desert-style Dances with Wolves, because it very much is about the colonizers, in particular Paul, learning to live and learning to adapt to the ways of the Fremen, this culture that has been on this planet, that has learned to be at one with the desert, that has their own culture, their own religion, seemingly influenced by various Middle Eastern cultures. And so Paul wants to be taken in, to be accepted, and the Fremen see him, some, as a messianic figure, because they have this belief that an outsider from another world will come and take them to paradise. But Paul doesn't want to be that guy, but Paul needs an army to push the bad guys off his planet. So what to do? And that is the conundrum. Now, there are many ways to describe Dune Part 2, but humorous is not one I would use readily. It is solemn, it is serious, but there are some really beautiful, warm performances, and I want to single out one of them, and that is one of the Fremen, Javier Bardem as Stilgar, because when we talk about the culture and the religion, well, Stilgar sees him as the Mahdi. He is the chosen one. He thinks Paul has the potential, but if he really wants to be accepted, he's got to, yes, ride the giant sandworm. Here he is with a bit of a pep talk. Take a look.
Don't try to impress anyone. You're brave, we all know that. Be simple, be direct. Nothing fancy.
Nothing fancy.
Hey, I'm serious. Nothing fancy, or you will shame my teaching.
I won't shame you. I understand.
I mean, he's playing a fanatic, right? He's playing this fundamentalist. It could be a one-note performance, but Bardem is so great. And I gotta give credit to Chalamet, really growing into his own in this second film. I mean, the whole world is on his slender shoulders, but he's got this kind of swagger. Maybe he is the savior. Now, we gotta show you what is kind of like the world's most dangerous game of Subway Surfer, the giant worm ride, right? So he's standing on the sand dunes, you've got grappling hooks, and then this thing the size of a skyscraper slides by. He's got to jump on and hang on. I wish I could convey to you the power, the roar, the sand, the shaking of the theater. I know, Jackson, you must have loved that bit.
I mean, you gotta read the books if you want to get the real Shai Hulud, but this is, oh my gosh, being in the theater, seeing that, we got the popcorn buckets and we got the worms on screen. There's not a whole lot more you could really ask for from a theatrical experience.
I think Frank Herbert would be pretty proud of seeing the worm riding realized.
The worm riding realized. Okay, so the movie is based on, as you mentioned, the original book by Frank Herbert. So Jackson, you've written about how the film and the novels, they differ. So what do you think of the changes made for the film?
I mean, this film is almost slavishly similar to the books. We get a lot of adaptations that take things out, try and cram everything into one movie, and this is not the way Denis Villeneuve went, and it's very, very astounding how similar it is. And Denis Villeneuve was a huge fan of Dune. You know, he said that in his yearbook he had Paul Atreides quotes, he had Muad'Dib carved into the inside of his graduation ring. But there are some very, very important changes in this adaptation. They all come towards the end. I've been talking to Eli. He's making me not spoil it for you.
Don't do that.
Exactly.
We'll feed you to the sandworms.
But what has changed here is that when these books were originally written, they were meant to be, like Eli said, it's similar to movies like Dances with Wolves or, you know, Lawrence of Arabia, which was inspired by Avatar, Fern Gully, Pocahontas, where somebody from a colonial group comes to a colonized group and then ends up saving them. But Frank Herbert was trying to actually subvert that, and he's meant to portray this character, Paul, as an anti-hero. He was dismayed that people did not get that when it first came out. He made a bunch of sequels to try and rectify that. But we got to talk to Denis Villeneuve about why he made some of those changes, and I want you to take a listen to why he made the Dune that he ended up making.
It felt that people were thinking Paul was a hero, as he wanted to do the opposite. He wanted Paul to be an anti-hero. He wanted the book to be a cautionary tale against messianic figures. And he wrote a tiny book called Dune Messiah to try to correct that perception. And me knowing that, I decided to make my adaptation to be more faithful to Frank Herbert than to the book.
So more faithful to Frank Herbert than the book. If you've read the book, you'll see some subtle changes at the end, darkening Paul's character. But also, very importantly, Denis Villeneuve said that he wanted to make this movie focused on the women in this story, so you get a lot more agency from Florence Pugh's character, the princess, from Lady Jessica, and
Rebecca
also,
Ferguson's
most
so
importantly,
good. Oh my
Zendaya.
goodness. Yeah.
Okay, so there's the book, there's the adaptation, the potential savior, the stars. So how would you describe Dune Part 2 overall?
I mean, this is double the Dune, and there was a lot in Dune Part 1, but I think Dune Part 1 did a great job of the world building, saying, okay, there's this desert planet, there's this spice, everyone's fighting for it. But here, really, Denis is doubling down on the power and the danger of religion and faith. Christopher Nolan has described this as Denis' Empire Strikes Back because I think it doesn't resolve. It ends on a cliffhanger, and it's much more serious and solemn. And we haven't even touched, like, Christopher Walken as the space emperor, Florence Pugh as his daughter, Austin Butler as this bald, psychotic, terrifying nephew trying to take Dune for his own. But the heart of this all is this young man, Paul, who is angry and afraid and terrified of these visions of what he may become. The Bene Gesserit, the space witches, the Fremen, Zendaya's character, they all want a piece of him. Take a look.
I want you to know I will love you as long as I breathe.
You will never lose me as long as you stay who you are.
Consider what you're about to do, Paul Atreides.
Is how they enslave us!
This is the Dune that Denis has wanted to make since he first picked up that book in Trois Rivières when he was 14 years old. And this is what he's been dreaming of. And like any dream, it is open to interpretation. He is not spelling it out for you. Like the worm, you got to grab on and just hold on for your life. My rating, 4 stars out of 5. Jackson?
I mean, we were here about 3 years ago talking about the first movie. We said it didn't really fully complete the movie. This is a similar thing. It doesn't fully complete the story, but it's still a masterpiece of amazing storytelling. That's a 4 out of 5 stars, planets, desert, sandworms for me as well.
Denis,
oh my
not
goodness.
a big fan of closure. He wants us to come back, wants us to keep coming back.
But that's it, right? So it ends on a cliffhanger, but there's not a Dune 3.
No, we don't know. We just
3, 4, 5.
Maybe. Who knows?
All right. We'll see. Thanks, guys. This is
Thank
CBC's Eli Glasner and Jackson Weaver.